Proverbs 31 is what we're going to look at specifically, but chapter 30 lays the foundation for the fact that the king, we don't really know who the king was, King Lemuel. Some say it was Solomon. Some commentators say it was another king. But he's, nevertheless, the person who is talking is the mother. A mother who is telling the king about an ideal type woman. Now, ladies, if you try to compare yourself with everything found in this virtuous woman, you're going to feel miserable, because there has never been a woman who has ever kept all of these things perfectly like this woman. It's an ideal situation, and it's something to strive after and want to be. And to understand that context is very important. My sister Lynn, when I would talk about this verse, she'd say, "Oh, don't talk about that, it just wears me out." She said, "I don't even want to hear about it. It wears me out." And I told her, I said, "Well, it's not about who you are, it's about the ideal woman and striving after those things that please God." Now, I've gone through this and I've found a number of characteristics that the woman has in Proverbs 31. And the mother is telling her son, now when you go into life looking for a wife, here are some of the things that you should notice. Let's read the words of King Lemuel, the prophecy that his mother taught him. So these are the words that a mother, a mama, taught her son. "What, my son, and what the son of my womb, and what the son of my vows? Give not thy strength unto women, nor thy ways to that which destroyeth kings." Now, there's a very big difference between a man who is a womanizer, who chases after ungodly women, and a man who is a man with eyes for one woman. One of the qualifications for a pastor is that he be the husband of one wife. And that literally interpreted means that he has eyes for one woman only. And a woman of God will be a blessing to you all of her days. But if you're a womanizer and you seek after those things that are not right, it'll destroy your life. And that's what she says here. "Give not your strength unto women, nor thy ways to that which destroyeth kings." And we know how in the past, when men were in absolute authority and they lusted and they chose women according to their beauty rather than their morals, their life would be ruined. Now he goes on in verse 4 and he says, "It is not for kings, O Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine, nor for princes strong drink, lest they drink and forget the law and pervert the judgment of any of the afflicted. Give strong drink unto him that is ready to perish, and wine unto those that be of heavy hearts. Let him drink and forget his poverty, and remember his misery no more. Open thy mouth for the dumb in the cause of all such as are appointed to destruction. Open thy mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and needy." Now, we begin in verse 10. "Who can find a virtuous woman?" Now, the word virtuous means a woman of excellence, a woman of moral integrity. Who can find a woman that has the principles and morals that will help you in building a faithful life for the glory of God? Now, we know that all women do not have moral foundations. They just simply live in the flesh and they follow the flesh, and they live by emotions and whatever they feel, and their life is just full of ups and downs and failures. But a good woman, a woman of God, will have morals and principles, and her life will be one of integrity and excellence. Who can find her? Well, if you do, here's what it says. Her price is far above rubies. Rubies were considered one of the greatest treasures that you could find back in these days. And rubies would be sold for large sums of money. And he says, if you find a good woman, a woman who has moral excellence, her price, her worth is far above rubies. I mean, you think of how many millions and millions of dollars that could have been gotten for beautiful rubies. But a woman of excellence is more desired than even rubies. The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. That is, her husband, he trusts in her, and this is the first principle of the virtuous woman. She is a trustworthy woman. She is a woman of trust. The husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. The Bible says in verse 11, the heart of her husband doth, notice, safely trust in her. He's put his confidence in her, and it will not let him down because she's a woman of moral excellence. He knows that she will not be dishonest and lie and do things that will hurt their marriage, but she will be a trustworthy woman. When a man puts his faith in a godly woman, he can trust her to make wise choices and to walk with wisdom. And the result will be that he will have no lack of gain. He will not go hungry, because she will be a woman of virtue, and she will use what they have wisely. Many times they talk about how that mothers have raised big boys on leftovers and scraps, and how that they have made much out of little in order to take care of their family. We also see that she does something else. She's a blessing to her husband, and she does him good all of her days. Verse 12. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. Now that's a blessing to count on. When you know that you have a godly wife who will be there for you at all times, no matter what happens, no matter what the situation is, she is a woman who is a blessing to her husband and will always do for him what is good. My, what a blessing that is to have a wife that you can trust in. You can put your check in the checking account, and she has access to it, and you know that she will not just go out and blow all the money on her personal needs. She will spend the money wisely. She will be frugal. She will use wisdom to take care of her family. That is a special woman. And that's something to strive after as a godly mother. We also see that her husband will be known in the gates all of the days of his life. Notice it says that she will do him good and not evil all the days of his life. So as long as he lives, she's a blessing. The woman is described by the mother as an asset to her husband. A godly woman enhances your joy and blessings. I often tell people, I counseled with people who are thinking about getting married, and I've heard men say, well, I'm going to marry her because she's going to make me happy. And I said, whoa, let me get something straight here. Nobody can make you happy. If you don't find joy and happiness in the Lord for yourself, there's nobody who can do it for you. Now, a godly person can enhance your happiness. They can make it greater and more of a blessing, but you first must have that peace of God in your own heart, and then she can be a blessing to you. Other men admire a man who has a wife who supports him and manages his household well. She blesses him and she contributes to his reputation. You see, she doesn't talk about him, and when pull comes to shove, she pulls for him because he's her husband, and she stands with him. Even though at times he may be stubborn and may think of things in a wrong way, but she knows that God has put him by her side, and so she is faithful to be an encouragement. We also see, number 3, that she's an eager worker. The heart of her husband does safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. She seeketh wool and flax, and worketh willingly with her hands. Now the wool and the flax were things that women needed in order to make clothing. Now back in this time when he wrote, you didn't have clothing stores like we have today, so the mothers had to know how to sew. They had to know how to make clothes for their children, and she did that willingly. She wasn't one to be lazy, but she was one who would be faithful. The entire passage describes that she was a hard-working, ideal woman, and it details in verses 13, 19, and 27 the way she worked. Look at verse 19. She layeth her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff. It's talking about the process here of making clothes and garments. And verse 27 says, she looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. She cares about her family, and she's eager to help them and to be a blessing. This kind of woman has a value far above rubies. Her hands are willing. Her mind is a mind that is prepared to work. She cooks and she does things for her family. And many times today there's so much pressure on mothers where they have to work a job full time and then do lots of things at home and don't get as much help as they ought to get from their husbands. And so she must have a willing heart and mind to work. She is doing the things that need to be done for the family instead of complaining. You see, there are a lot of times where a woman has the reasons to complain, but instead of complaining, she simply trusts God and tries to do her best for her family. The Proverbs woman is one who ministers at home, and she takes a little and turns it into a lot. Remember that a woman can't compare herself with any other woman because different women excel in different things. But if you do those things that are pleasing to God and you work resourcefully as a woman, you will be blessed. Number 5, this woman has a spiritual motivation. Notice in verse 12 it says, or look at verse 14, she is like the merchant ship that she bringeth her food from afar. And notice this, she riseth also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her household, and a portion to her maidens. This woman is a woman who will rise early and provide food. Proverbs 31:15 makes this very clear. She giveth meat to her household and a portion to her maidens. She has servants who help her, but she doesn't take advantage of that. She's willing to do her part. This is a wise woman indeed, who is self-motivated, and she is a great blessing. We see that she's motivated to work in the wee hours of the morning, and she gives advice to her family and her children. It's a beautiful distinction to see this kind of woman. Notice also that this woman is a spiritual woman. She rises while it's yet night. She gives meat to her household and a portion to her maidens. She considers a field and buyeth it. With the fruit of her hands she planteth the vineyard. She girdeth her loins with strength and strengtheneth her arms. Every mother ought to read devotional books, read the Bible, listen to godly music to encourage you. And I would advise you, if you don't have the book Awake My Heart by J. Sidlow Baxter, it's one of the best devotional books that I've ever read. In fact, I've worn several of them out just reading through them. And Spurgeon has a number of good ones. Daily Bread is a good one. But get you a daily devotional and read every day a devotion to encourage your heart and to encourage your family. She plants a vineyard, so she works with her hands. And she even earns money. She's a businesswoman. We see that she's certainly a woman of distinction. Number 7, she's very industrious. She dresses her children and her husband in warmth. Notice it says in verse 17, she girds her loins with strength, strengthens her arms. She perceives that her merchandise is good. Her candle goeth not out by night. This woman is industrious. Even more so, we realize that when we both aspire to do what is right before God and we pray and we walk with the Lord, we will see that this kind of woman will be a blessing. She knows her value. She brings great joy to her house. She works until the job is done. Her home is a safe haven. And no matter what you do, you can do it well and with diligence as you walk with Christ. So the woman is a woman that is industrious. Number 8, we also see that this woman is a generous woman. She's very generous with helping people. She opens her house to the poor. Notice it says that verse 20, she stretcheth out her hand to the poor. Yea, she reacheth forth her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. We can all remember when we were little and it would come a big snow and it was cold outside, and Mom would be the one to make sure you had a coat on and you had a hat on and that you were warm. And I can remember Mom would say, now you need your long johns and put on a couple pair of pants and 3 pair of socks, and to keep you warm, because she's concerned about her family. She's very generous. She's very giving. And she takes time to reach out to those who are in need. Having someone over for dinner with your family or helping someone with things that they need is something that she will do because she loves other people. Number 9, the woman is well prepared, for it tells us that even when the snow falls, she is not afraid. She's not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. This woman is well prepared. Her heart is full of strength and dignity, and when the troubled times come, she laughs at these times because she knows that she's prepared. We see that becoming this kind of woman requires sacrifice. Number 10, the woman is businesslike in her work. She makes linen and garments and sells them. Notice verse 22. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sitteth among the elders of the land. She maketh fine linen and selleth it, and delivereth girdles unto the merchants. She is a woman who uses her talents. If you have a talent that you can use to be a blessing to your family, by all means do it. Do everything you can that God has gifted you with these different abilities. You know, I saw a woman over at Walmart, and she was shopping, and after they added up all the stuff she had, she gave them her coupons, and the person at the cash register said, "Well, we owe you 36 cents. And I looked there and I said, "How do you go shop and buy all these things and the store ends up paying you instead of you paying them?" She says, "Because I gather coupons and I'm very careful about everything that I do." I thought, that's an amazing thing that I aspire to try and do. This is one of the things that a godly woman tries to do in her life. Number 11, this woman is strong and dignified. Strength and dignity are her clothing. She is one that doesn't buckle when pressure comes. We all know that in our marriages and families, there are going to come difficult times. And if a woman does not have a strong moral character and faith in God, when these times come, she will throw in the towel. I was talking to a man last week at the doctor's office, and I was talking with him about his life and his marriage, and he said that they had 2 children, and he lost his job, and some bad things happened, and he said, "I came in one day and there was a note on the door and my wife was gone. She just pulled up and left." And he said, "I tried to get a hold of her. I couldn't reach her. I couldn't find out why she was doing this." But he said, "She just basically left me." What a sad thing that is, for you to put your trust in someone, rely upon them, and then a person to just simply deny you and turn away from you. This woman is a woman of modesty. Godly women dress respectively. They respect the things that God honors. You see, you are to dress in a way that shows that you belong to God. Your body is not your own. It belongs to God. You are the vessel of God, and you're precious in God's sight. So you dress in a way that shows that you respect God and you honor His holy word. Modesty can be likened to a humble heart. A woman who dresses modestly, she doesn't want to be the show. She doesn't want to be the one that everybody looks at and talks about, but she just wants to be the woman that is praised by her husband and honoring God. A modest woman is one who is understanding, and clothes should not scream, "Look at me." Humility points people toward Christ and draws attention not to self, but to those things that are righteous and holy. Women should not be flashy or wasteful. This woman adorns herself so that people look at her and know that she takes care of herself, but she doesn't spend excessively. There's a commercial on TV with Nick Saban, the football coach at Alabama. And he's talking with a young lady, and she's getting ready to spend like $800 on a dress. And he says, how many times are you going to wear that dress? And she said, well, maybe once. And he said, you think it's worth paying $800 for a dress you're going to wear one time? She said, no, I don't think it is. So he taught her a lesson. Many times, we learn that we don't have to spend excessively in order to do what God wants us to do. We can do it honestly and humbly, and God will honor that. Also notice that this woman watches her words. She opens her mouth. Notice verse 26. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. Becoming a Proverbs 31 woman means learning when to speak and when to remain silent. That's not just for women, that's for men too. I find in my experience that most people are more anxious to talk than they are to listen. We've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. And I think the world would be a whole lot better place if we would learn to listen before we speak. And so this woman knows when to open her mouth, and the law of kindness is in her tongue. We find that this woman is a woman whose price is far above rubies. Now, in closing, here's the result of what happens. The Bible tells us in verse 28, her children arise up, and what do? They call her blessed. That word blessed means to be blessed by God, to have things in her life that makes her beautiful. There are all kinds of different beauties. You can be a beautiful woman outside, but be an ugly woman inside. Inner beauty can make you beautiful all over if you have a heart of humility and a heart of humbleness. Maybe I shouldn't tell this, but I'm going to. When Kathy and I were dating, before we started seeing each other, there was a man who asked me if I would escort his cousin. And she was coming from North Carolina, and he wanted me to sit by her at church and do things with her and all that. Well, I didn't know at the time when I agreed to it that Kathy and I were going to be seeing each other. And I felt really bad. I thought, well, she'll probably get upset and be jealous, and she'll just, walk away from me. But I was very shocked. She wasn't jealous. She even sat with us and talked to us. And I was amazed that she was not full of jealousy, because all the girls that I had known in the past were so jealous about those things and so immature, and to meet somebody that had maturity. When I was with another girl, if you passed somebody and waved at them, you get slapped upside the head because you just simply waved at another girl. But Kathy wasn't that way. And that drew me to her. That made me see that there was something very precious about her attitude. Her children will rise up and call her blessed. I hear little children at times say that they hate their mother. I hear little children, talk about their dads and how they abused them and mistreated them. And what a blessing it is for a mother to raise her children in such a way that her children look up to her and they admire her and they love her for her faithfulness. This woman, the mother, is reminding her son, don't be distracted by the charm and beauty, but seek a woman who fears God, a woman who longs to be faithful to God, she will be truly admired. Her trust and her praise will be exhibited as long as she lives. Now, I want to just mention this. A Proverbs woman, don't feel overwhelmed when you read about all these things that she had. Remember that this is a journey, and as you grow, you'll become more and more an image of Christ. And the more you learn of Christ, the more you will become like the woman that is described here. The way to apply this is, number one, pray and ask God to help you. If you feel you have failures, and men, we must do the same thing. If we have failures, we need to pray and ask God to help us. And then focus on His grace. That will equip you, and you don't have to earn God's favor. Just remember how gracious He is. And then dig deep into these virtues and study them. I was thinking about the sacrifice that many mothers have made, and I thought about a situation when I was in Florida pastoring. There was a little boy who was, he would swim in a water hole in the river there, the St. John's River. And he had done it since he was a little boy. One day he was out there swimming, and his mother was in the yard working on the garden, and she looked up and she saw a 12-foot gator coming toward her little boy. So she began to run to the little boy, and she ran out and grabbed a hold of his arm, and right as she grabbed his arm, the gator grabbed his leg. And so she was in a tug of war with a 12-foot alligator for her little boy. And she took her hands and got a hold of that gator's mouth and punched it in the face and in the eyes and made it turn loose of her little boy. And she drug him to the bank and saved his life. His leg was mangled and they had to do a lot of surgeries on it. But can you imagine such a sacrifice? And I think that probably every woman here would do that for your child, because that's the way a mother loves. She don't care about herself. She cares about her children, about her family, and she honors God, and her price is far above rubies. If you have a mother today, count it a blessing to be able to call her, do something with her, because your mother's not always going to be here. And those of us who don't have a mother, we know a grief and a loneliness that you can only experience when you lose your mother. Let's stand together.